I want to start today's episode with a story, one I've heard often. A family tours 3 senior living communities in one weekend. They compare floor plans, they compare pricing, they compare amenities. And afterwards, they tell me they all kind of felt the same. So we just went with our gut. What they don't see is what's happening behind the scenes. They don't see the phone calls between care managers and community teams. They don't see professionals coordinating behind the curtain to prevent crises. They don't see which communities collaborate and which ones operate in silos. But here's the truth. Those invisible relationships are often the difference between a smooth transition and a traumatic one. Hi, I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and seniors real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area. As part of the sandwich generation myself, I know how overwhelming it is to juggle work, kids, and aging parents all at once, trying to make decisions inside a system that doesn't explain itself very well. That's why I created the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. Every episode is designed to pull back the curtain to help families understand not just what choices they have, but how the senior care ecosystem actually works. And today's conversation does exactly that. I'm joined by Athena Quinones, Business Development Director at Kisco Senior Living and the founder of ProServe Network, a professional community dedicated to strengthening collaboration across senior services. Athena sits at the intersection of senior living, care management, and community partnerships every single day, and she sees firsthand where transitions break down and where they succeed. Today, we're talking about what families never see but deeply benefit from. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Athena, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Oh, Dell, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
You are very welcome. So, Athena, for listeners who may not know you yet, can you share your role at Kisco Senior Living and what your day-to-day actually looks like?
Sure. So I have this unique role in senior living organization. It's called Business Development Director, and not many senior living organizations actually have a business development director. But in my local community, I'm also known as a senior ambassador, which is pretty cool that I get to be known as that. And I really spend a lot of time building relationships and partnerships with professionals and then just supporting older adults, right? And that goes inside of our community, outside of our community to our local greater East Bay area. And my goal is to enhance the services that we have available to us within our senior living community. So that goes so far beyond just our residents at Kisco Senior Living, right? And then on top of that, I run a lot of it. So part of my role isn't just to build these amazing relationships with professionals and seniors, but I get to run events. And that could be anywhere from educational events to more interactive events that help seniors to feel seen and just increase their quality of life. And that can happen in our community, in our senior living communities, local here in Walnut Creek, or I might go outside of our senior living communities to some of the senior run organizations or to our chambers or even to our senior community centers. So really a lot of different activities, a lot of relationship building, and just enhancing the services that we have available, making those connections. That is what business development does. It goes so much more beyond just working with professionals. It's really working with our community and working with our seniors, working with families and the loved ones. It's a pretty awesome job.
Yeah, that's a lot. And you know what? It's also really helpful because I think families assume senior living sometimes is just about operations, but what you're describing is relationship management, ecosystem coordination, and long-term trust building. Yeah, which I
Absolutely.
love. And I know you founded ProServe Network. Even I'm a part of it now too. What gap did you see in the senior care ecosystem that made you say we need something different?
Great question. So we came into the senior living kind of organization, if you will. I started to network with professionals. I started to jump into different networks, obviously to our local chambers of commerce, I really quickly saw that there was a big gap there. People were very disconnected and they worked in silos. There was no real connection and there wasn't really any relationship building. It was just an exchange of numbers or exchange of business cards. And then people would go home and kind of just forget about it until they really needed that professional services, right? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, who did I run into? Who did I meet that can help me or my client with it? And so I felt there was a better way to do this. There's a better way to create more of a connection to really elevate services. In addition, it's not just the professionals that are lacking value from this, but it's really the seniors and their families. So if we are disconnected as professionals in our local community, then our family members that need us or our seniors that need us, they aren't getting the resources and the services that they really can have. And so by creating ProServe, which is a network for professionals that serve seniors, I decided that, I wanted to do networking differently. I wanted to do it in a very meaningful and impactful way that goes beyond just professionals. It's really focusing on serving the community and elevating those services available. And so with ProServe, we don't just network. We don't just exchange cards. It's really about elevating that education, the understanding of the services available. It's about combining services and enhancing the value that's available by bringing more resources available to our communities and by enhancing our understanding. So as professionals, again, we might go to a network and we'll hear a presenter for 20 minutes and that's kind of it. And in such a short little window to hear about their services. But what we want to do is to be able to really educate each other on topics, not at the surface level, but really get granular so that we know here are some things that we need to learn about for our seniors. Here's some services available. Maybe there's some new resources that are available through programming or government funding, or there's new laws, or there's new innovative solutions that are here for our seniors. These are the things that we really want to tap into in our network. And we want to share that with all the professionals that are part of ProServe, because if they understand these resources and they understand what's available, not only can they offer that and make those connections with the seniors and their families, but now they can see how can I partner with that organization or with that particular professional to have more of a continuum of care. And that's really what it's about. It goes so much beyond, so much further than just networking, right? It's about relationships, education, and resources. And so I'm really passionate. I'm very passionate about it, but that's why I started ProServe. It was really to have more meaningful impact and that made greater purpose.
Yeah, I love that you started it and it's a great group. From my perspective, ProServe wasn't just about visibility, it's about alignment. You were trying to solve fragmentation. I actually think you're leveling everybody up that's in there because you're exposing them to resources that they didn't know about. So it's everybody together is kind of knowing more to be able to serve their clients better. Yeah. So you're in conversations with professionals across senior living, care management, home care, hospice, and more. From your vantage point, what do families assume is happening behind the scenes that actually isn't?
Oh, okay. So families are often assuming that professionals that are involved in care for a senior or loved one, that they're automatically communicating with one another. And that's not really the case, right? We can use you can use some care organizations as examples. Kaiser is very well known, right? And so if you're a Kaiser member, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just using them as an example, then you see the Kaiser optometrist, you see the Kaiser pharmacy, you see the Kaiser, PCP, it's all a network. And so they are hopefully, right, communicating with one another. But if you're not in a network like that, then things can get really separated and communication is not clear. So the same goes with senior living communities. The same goes with any senior getting care that is receiving care from different channels, right? And so a lot of families assume that there is this type of communication, but that's not always the case, really. And so being really proactive in understanding who is providing the care, who is going to be stepping in for my loved one, or who's doing this, who's doing that, and where are those channels of communication? How is that working? What's that look like? Is there a
Yeah.
cadence here? That's really important. We can't assume that we're all on the same page. It's just not the case. As a matter of fact, one of the things that senior living communities do when they're taking in or considering a new resident for assisted living is they have this form called a 602, and it's a medical form that the primary care doctor will fill out. And then also the community will have their care team or their director, which is usually a nurse, will do the same thing. They'll also do a 602. Now, why is this type of communication important? It's important because you will maybe as a community, you might assess a potential resident, right? But you know their entire
Right.
history. They might be hiding something because they really want to come into the senior living community or they really need care. But maybe that community that
Right.
they really want to go to can't handle the level of care they need. So they're going to hide some of their illnesses or the issues that they're having or some of the care needs that they have. They might hide that or they might forget about it, or the family may not even know about
Yeah.
it. And so communicating and having two 602s, one from their primary care doctor, physician, and then having assessment from the community itself, and putting those together and communicating and making sure there's that communication between their PCP and the community. That kind of communication is really, really important. So never assume, always go above and beyond. And that goes not only from care providers,
Mhm.
but that goes to families, right? Really, really families, POA, power of attorney, whoever is overseeing that senior. Super important that there's a clear line of communication and no assumptions at all with what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I love all that. Thank you. Let's segue into what families never see. When a senior transition goes well, what are the invisible factors families usually never realize contributed to that success?
Yes. So those invisible factors, the things behind the scenes that contribute to a successful transition. It's really when
Hmm.
you have professionals that are aligned in the early stages. It's where there's that clear communication, clear expectation. I just gave an example where there may be a senior that wants to move to a community and they may bypass some of the important things that are going on in order just to get into that
Yeah.
community. And so we don't want to miss a beat with anything. But if you have a care team in the background, you have even move managers that are helping. A great
Hmm.
example is when seniors are downsizing, right? It's huge because oftentimes the senior has
Hmm.
been in their home for 30 plus years, and there's a lot that goes into that.
Hmm.
And so a really great example of transitioning that goes well is if they hire someone to help them move, a move manager, moving company, that move manager should be connected with other resources. Those resources should specialize in working with seniors. And so that move manager will help with coordinating a downsizer, an organizer. Maybe it will help to liquidate some of the things they don't need anymore. They'll understand behind the tangible things, the mental health component to that. What's
Yeah.
important to this person? What is meaningful? What can we
Yeah.
do to make sure that we're not taking away any independence, that we're giving them choice, that we're hearing their voice? What are their wishes? And so all of that plays an important role in having smooth transitions that go so well, that end in
Hmm.
great results. You know, there's so many different examples, but that transition from moving is a huge one. Care, communication, understanding that there's a team behind, there's those doctors communicating, there's the care team that's receiving a senior is communicating, and that even beyond care, if you think about it, when a senior moves into a senior living community, say they're diabetic, say they're on a special diet, or maybe they
Yeah.
can't alcohol, right? That care team is not with them
Yeah.
24/7. They can go into a dining room and they can choose to have the food they want. So guess who else needs to be part of that
Hmm.
continuum of care and part of that communication? It's a dining team. It's the servers. Nobody thinks about how important a server is. That server has to know that resident enough to know you just ordered a glass of wine and you can't have one, doctor's orders, or you just ordered a dessert and you're actually not supposed to have sugar right now. So let me give you an alternative. It's very important that we have these smooth transitions. We have this communication, because if we don't, if we're not working together, if we're not working as a community, even outside of our senior community, that's when things fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
That's when people get upset. That's when mental health goes down. That's when transitions fall through, and it's not seamless. It's not a good experience. And really, you're not having great outcomes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how much of a family's experience is shaped not by the community itself, but by how well professionals collaborate before and after move-in?
That's a really, again, another great question, Dale. It's honestly, it's an enormous amount. I mean, collaboration with family members, it's loved ones, POA, it's really, really important. A community can be excellent, but if the professional supporting them or the
Yeah.
family is not aligned, then you have just disconnection. There can be holdups, there can be confusion. Everything is fragmented, right? And so it's really
Yeah.
important that we're not overwhelming the senior, the beloved one that's moving in, that we have a strong collaboration that
Yeah.
allows us to have the right questions to be asked early and prevent surprises later. And really having the family, or obviously POA, if we have a power of attorney, well, having them involved is important, right? And having the family on the same page is important. We've had lots of examples where we've had family members who are hard to get a hold of, who are adamant about making
Mhm.
decisions and being part of any kind of transition. And then they're maybe arguing with one another, or we can't reach them. And so this makes things really hard, and it puts strain on that senior, and it puts strain on the team as well that's supporting. So just collaboration, working together, those again, clear expectations, really, really, really important for successful outcomes. And everybody wants successful outcomes.
Yeah. That really reframes things, because it's not just about choosing the right place. It's about choosing the right team, you know? And moving on, what are some early warning signs that a family is entering a transition without the right professional alignment?
Unfortunately, we see that more often than we'd like. So when you see
Yeah.
that there's a lot of different people supporting senior, or that could be with the transition, that could be with care, it's just many different things, right? And there's a lot of different people supporting, but there doesn't seem to be coordination
Mhm.
between the two. Again, that alignment, that collaboration. You can tell when you start
Yeah.
to have questions, emails start coming through. There's a lot of people that are asking questions like, who's doing this, or what's happening, or I didn't know. That's a clear indication that there's not alignment there. When a resident, I'm going to say resident in a senior living atmosphere, right? When they are getting direction from many different people, again, that is poor alignment. They're going to get confused or overwhelmed, or feel like their autonomy is being taken away because everybody is coming at them and telling them what to do. So really, really important that we don't,
Yeah.
right? We have one person that is their primary contact to support them, to guide them. And of course, it's a team, and that team may be internally, maybe externally, but that it's really a one point person for that. Also, when there's timelines that seem to be rushed, this happens a lot when all of a sudden everything is an emergency. What happened?
Yeah.
Why is it an emergency? What fell through the cracks, and why? Okay, so those are all signs
Mhm.
that in some kind of misalignment, that we're not transitioning things correctly. We're not doing our best to communicate. And we, meaning everyone outside of that senior, because really we can't expect that senior is doing everything by themselves. Every senior is different. We're all different, right? And so where they're at in their health journey is going to be different. There's some seniors that will be very independent and will be able to make decisions on their own. They really don't need support from anyone but themselves. And that is great. But there's also a lot of seniors that will come in that are assisted. They need support. Their cognition isn't quite there. And so
Mhm.
they need more
Mhm.
support. There's more collaboration. That's more people working together. There's more of that need of continuous care. And that's really where that's where alignment really, really makes a great impact. It's with those people that are in assistant or especially memory care, right? Anybody who's in a memory care setting, those people are definitely going to need a team that is working together.
Now, here's a good follow-up question. Why do silos still exist in senior care, even though everyone says they want what's best for families?
Yeah. I ask myself that a lot. And I think the best answer I could give you is that there's just taking care of seniors. And again, I'm just going to use senior living as its setting, right? Taking care of seniors, there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think people realize it. You've got care, and care is huge. There's so much that goes into that, right? That's massive in itself. Then you've got food, dining, and nutrition. You've got mental health. You've got physical health. You've got activities and things like that to help people feel like they're thriving in their environment. And so the reason why there are silos is because there is a lot to do. There is a lot, and there's so much pressure. There's a lot of work, and it can feel overwhelming. At times, it might feel undersupported because there's such a big demand. The higher the acuity, the higher the care need, the greater demand, the greater pressure there is on any team that's supporting those seniors. And so it could create silos. And then honestly, there's just definitely a lack of collaboration between different scopes of work. So if I am, for example, a podiatrist, I may not think about all the other different types of care that's needed for a senior because I am super laser focused on podiatry. And I don't have time to invest in learning about the other things that might be beneficial for my patients. And so I'm just going to be laser focused. If I'm in dining and I'm serving my seniors and I've got, 150, 180, 200 seniors to serve 3 times a day, I'm focusing on excelling in my service and just getting through that day, right? I'm focusing on providing a clean area, nutritious meal, superior service, just being on time. I don't have time to maybe collaborate and partner with the nutritionist who might help give me more ideas. And so those silos are a couple of things. It's because the pressure and the overwhelm, and then because there's just not a whole lot of time, or maybe some places don't have the connection to the resources to educate them on the different avenues that can impact their job, their work, and their really the person or people they're working with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, can you walk a situation where collaboration clearly changed the outcome for a family?
Yeah, definitely. I know that there's been so many circumstances where we've had to work with families from bringing in a resident, making sure that we're the right community for them. I want to make sure that we are the right community for potential resident and they're the right fit for us, meaning we can take care of their needs. We're equipped for that physically, mentally, socially. That's really, really big. And that we fit their lifestyle. We can complement their lifestyle. So making sure that we're communicating with the family and with the resident, the potential resident, is really, really important from the very beginning, from the onset of things. And then having that communication throughout. So there might be times where all of a sudden, mom or dad is taking a turn for the worse, and our team is recognizing they're not eating, or they're starting to get very aggressive. And so we have to make sure that we are talking with the families, letting them know what's going on from the very early stages, because we often know that these types of behaviors, they progress. Okay, they don't usually get better. And so knowing from the beginning of these onset of these symptoms, we want to communicate that with families so we can set the right expectations. And then as that may progress, we're creating a plan of care for that resident. And we're working together with the families. There's been many times where we might bring in a senior who's quite independent, and we know there's a little bit of memory care issue, but it hasn't progressed yet. And so we're okay with taking them into assisted living because they're putting them into a memory care setting would be just detrimental to their mental health. I mean, if you put someone in a memory care setting before they're really ready, that could make the progression go a lot faster. And so we don't want to do that. But there's, again, been times where we identify, okay, this is someone who eventually will need that memory care, but right now we're going to go assisted. And we have seen this
Yeah.
happen through time where we see the signs that they are starting to progress. And so we've had couple where we bring them and we want them to stay together. We bring them to assisted living, even if one's independent, because we know one is not. And we work with that family and we work with the spouse to follow the care and needs of their loved one all the way through to the point where, okay, we need to make that transition. They have to go into memory care. And we work with them and what's that going to look like for them? If it's a couple, that could be really challenging emotionally, right? So how can we work with them and make sure that we're all on the same page? We're making sure that they're not left alone. They're not feeling isolated. They're feeling part of the decision making. They still get to be connected as much as possible. So there's a lot that goes into collaborating and making sure that there's a really good outcome instead of, I'll give you the opposite would be not communicating, not telling the family that there's warning signs that there's been progression with a disease. And then all of a sudden, a big care change is needed. And we just slam them with that. And all of a sudden, they have to make these quick and swift decisions on what am I going to do with my loved one? Do they have to make quick transition into a memory care? Is there a memory care in this community? Do I have to move them to a different community because the care level that my loved one is now at is not something this community can handle? And so we don't want to do that. We want to avoid that as much as possible, right? And so again, that collaboration changes the outcome. It changes the direction of the senior and where they're going to go and the care level that they're going to see and also their mental health, which is, again, I can't talk enough about how important mental health is with seniors.
Let's pivot just slightly to the senior living with a Kisco lens and partnerships. From a senior living perspective, how do strong professional relationships improve resident outcomes after move-in?
Okay, partnerships and outcomes after move-in. I think this is really, really important. We already have trusted relationships inside of our community, right?
Yeah.
So it's bringing that outside into our community and making sure they're vetted, making sure, again, keyword trusted, and that they're offering support that our residents actually need. What's in demand? What are we missing that can complement our services to enhance the outcomes, the livelihood, just the joy that our residents have? And so making sure that we have those resources available to them, that's really, really important. Bringing in offsite services, I have the privilege in my role to really partner with different professionals that are outside and bring them in so that after the move-in, we make sure that we're still having our residents in a thriving environment, an engaging environment, and getting services that they would have if they were in their own homes. So, for example, I've been part of making sure that we bring in a physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, massage therapist, dental hygienist, dentist, audiologist, and so many more different partners. And they come to our community. And that way, it really enhances the services that we can offer. It elevates that lifestyle, if you will, because now our residents don't have to go outside of the community to get these services. They can have it right there. Some of them gave up their vehicles. Some of them can't get out. Some of them just are struggling to find a trusted provider. And so making sure that you have those relationships with those professionals outside and you're bringing them in, that's amazing. And just in addition to care, we have to think about what about things that are more in the entertainment format? Musicians, artists, presenters, things that really, again, bring the outside services that our residents used to get to experience. We're bringing them to them so that they feel that they still have a sense of independence. They're still able to continue that same lifestyle that they had outside of senior living and in senior living. So that's really important to have. And I think that's where what really differentiates different senior living communities as well. It's taking those services, those really valuable services from outside and bringing them in for our residents.
Follow-up question is, how can families unintentionally disrupt good collaboration simply because they didn't know what to ask?
This again, it happens, right? So sometimes families can take the role of like a POA, power of attorney, or they may just have an agreement that maybe the eldest is making decisions, or they're all going to work together to make decisions. And yet it happens so often that communication between family members is fragmented. And also oftentimes there's disagreements, right? And so not often do we find that we have families that work together seamlessly, that are able to make decision making together without difficulty. And so we can find that the most challenging times for seniors is in these transitions is that they are not supported by their family members. And we want to make sure that their families are communicating, that they're honoring their loved one. Seniors can often feel too that their families are taking away their ability of having autonomy, their ability to make those important decisions, and it frustrates them. They want to be able to still feel like they can make their own decisions. And so just really having them working together is important. And unfortunately, when they don't work together, when they don't have a plan that is in agreement with everyone, the family, the POA, the POAs, and part of that, or the resident themselves, when they don't have a plan and work together in decision making before they even come in, that seems to grow as an issue once the resident takes place in our community.
Now, let's talk more about ProServe Network. What's the difference between transactional networking and relationship-based collaboration in senior care?
So transactional networking, I would say it's more of an exchange, right? We've got the typical network, like I kind of described before. They're just exchanging numbers. They aren't building relationship. They aren't building trust. They're not vetting. And this can create issues when you're working with seniors, especially with seniors and their families. We want to make sure that we are creating a place where we are really, truly learning about the services that we all provide. We're enhancing the value that we can offer because we're able to make connection and partnerships for continuum of care. And that there's a huge difference. That transaction, it's just an exchange and it's usually for referral, and there's no true investment in it. When you're working together like ProServe does, you're working for the greater good, for the better outcome, and you're really working together because you are in it because you're passionate about it. You're not in it just for the money behind it.
Yeah. Now, from your experience, how does ProServe help prevent last-minute crises during transitions?
Oh, goodness gracious. ProServe has been so pivotal in helping to prevent crises. Again, it's more of that collaboration. It's really elevating the education and the knowledge that professionals have. So we're not just a typical network. We are focused on educating, focused on connecting. And when you do that well, when you teach people about different topics or the different resources, the different things that are coming about, innovative solutions, when we're talking about, then we know how to better serve our clients. We know how to better serve that senior demographic and working together. When you can work together, you are preventing crises because you're able to identify when something is going to happen that's not going to produce a good outcome. You're able to pull together resources that are positive, and you really can map out the entire process. You can create a cadence, if you will, for successful outcomes. You already know ahead of time what are some of the warning signs that we need to look out for, and how can I incorporate every avenue of need to better serve my clients. So really, it's identifying and it's creating those resources.
Great. And if an adult child is listening right now and feels overwhelmed, what's the first thing they should focus on even before choosing a community?
Yeah, a lot of people, unfortunately, they wait till the last minute. And so they do
Right.
often find themselves in a place of overwhelm. But even if you're planning, when we're making a big move like this for a loved one, it can mentally be draining, emotionally be draining. And really, the best things that you want to do is understand, what is your loved one's wishes? What do they want? What is their lifestyle? And how can you find community that really pairs well with their current lifestyle? Because the last thing they want is a huge shift from their current lifestyle into something that is totally new, all new people, a new home, and we're changing their lifestyle. And then also, most importantly, what care do they need? Care is huge. We want to make sure that we understand everything they need: mental, physical care, emotional care. We might need some therapy, grief support. That's all really important. So, what kind of care do they need holistically? And are we able to match that need with a community that best serves their lifestyle? And hopefully, community that is close in proximity to their loved ones, or maybe even to friends if they don't have loved ones. Not everybody has children, or which are now adult children. So, we want to make sure that we're just having a smooth transition. And that takes away a lot of stress. Focusing on, how did life look now? How do we want it to look in the future? And just having that clarity will really give you peace of mind. But again, a lot of that stems from communicating with your loved one.
Yeah, understood. 100%. What questions should families be asking that almost no one tells them to ask?
Oh, so I love this. I actually do a lot of presentations about this very thing, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when we're
Right.
thinking
Right.
about making those transitions, and you're in real estate too, and so this happens a lot where people just
Right.
don't really know what to ask. And so I always suggest that we start to ask more questions and probe as much as possible. And it starts with care, of course, and those questions start at home. We just went over that, right? Those questions start at home, and then they start to go into the community. What does the senior community do to be involved in the local community? That's really big. Do you want to move to a community that's completely
Right.
isolated and doesn't collaborate or talk to the outside community? Really, that's up to you. But
Right.
there's so many benefits toward a community and the residents who socialize and collaborate with a local community, who has that access to those local resources, who knows what's going on with those local resources. So understanding that and knowing, where's this community at in this
Mhm.
process? Are they active with their local partners? What do they do to stay part of those local providers? So what do you do to stay part of the local providers who serve seniors? And how do you build relationships between those providers and your residents and your care team? That's really important. And then also, how does the community contribute to a thriving lifestyle for its residents? You've got the typical, I provide housekeeping once a week, or I provide transportation. Dig into that transportation. Is it once a day we're going to a specific spot, and if you want to go, you can go? Or is it, we provide transportation 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, or 12 hours a day? You can book that transportation for your doctor or to go visit a friend. Get into that transportation piece. And what type of services are we bringing in as far as entertainment services? Are you only including your community team to provide entertainment services, or are you bringing that outside in? This is, again, one of those really important questions to find out, what resources are they bringing in? If you have a loved one that is thriving, that is independent, that enjoys entertainment or enjoys activities, enjoys socializing, to go into a community that is a little less active, a little less involved in the community, that really can play a toll on their mental health and their well-being. So just knowing what
Mhm.
kind of entertainment they bring in, the quality of it. Do you also take the residents outside? Do you take them to the city, to museums, or to concerts? Those things you want to dive into. So that's the quality, right? And then what care
Mhm.
is available at the community level? Not every community will accept someone that has diabetes if they need injection. They're not equipped to handle that. Or not every community will be able to support someone who needs a Hoyer lift or maybe has tube feeding.
Hmm.
So knowing that very, very early on in the discovery phase is really important to be able to find the right community for your loved one.
Now, I want your opinion. I want your opinion on the future. From where you sit, how do you see senior transitions evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
So this is like really a loaded question. We have this really big demographic of seniors, right? It's the biggest population, pretty much the growing population right now. I think 1 in every 5 adults is they're a senior. And so what that means is that as time goes on, we're going to have this big population that has a great need.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a less population of people who can support that need. This is huge. This is key. So
Hmm.
what that means in the senior living realm or the care realm is that we are going to have less care, less quality of services for seniors, less housing for seniors,
Hmm.
less support overall. And that is really important to know today
Hmm.
because we need to make decisions today and start looking at what resources are available, what kind of things should we start to prepare for? Because as the future continues to come closer, come near, right? As we live in our future, we're going to have more challenges with supporting seniors. And I can't stress enough how now is the best time to start making decisions and to start communicating and to start looking for the resources or senior living communities for your loved one or even for your clients.
Yeah, I love that. Now, lastly, if there's one thing you want families to remember, something that could truly change their experience, what would that be?
Your loved one is, no matter where they are in their journey of aging, they are still the same person you knew 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. They still want to feel like an adult who has control over their life. They still want to enjoy their life. They want to have relationship. They want to be able to feel like they can have the food that they love, have the lifestyle that they love. That doesn't change with age. They want to feel human. And so giving them that privilege of having some autonomy, being able to make those decisions on their own, being able to have a lifestyle that's closely fit to the previous lifestyle they had, that is important. And almost more than anything else, mental health plays one of the greatest roles on a loved one's overall health. You can have early onset dementia. You can have maybe severe diabetes, or you can have so many different things going on in your body. But if your mental health is not in check, if you don't feel fulfilled or satisfied or even have purpose, everything else doesn't matter. I mean, it all goes downhill. So treat your loved one with love and
Yeah.
respect and dignity and help them to make decisions by being a support role and not the decision maker. Guide them, be with them, love them, and support them in their decisions.
Solid advice. That alone could change someone's experience. Athena, thank you so much for this conversation. What you shared today reinforces something I believe deeply, that the best senior transitions don't happen because families pick the right place. They happen because the right people were working together behind the scenes. And for everyone listening, if you're navigating a senior transition, remember this: you're not just choosing a community, you're stepping into an ecosystem. And the strength of that ecosystem can make all the difference. If you'd like to learn more about Athena's work, Kisco Senior Living, or the ProServe Network, you'll find all of those links in the show notes. And before you go, if you found today's episode helpful, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more families discover the show. Share this episode with a friend, colleague, or family member who may be facing a senior transition. And if your loved one is considering senior living and you need help figuring out the next step, including what to do with the home, you could learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com, or DM me on Instagram at soldbydale. Thanks for tuning in. One last thank you to Athena for being on the show with me today.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I'll see the rest of you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.